Hey guys, thanks for stopping by the channel today. So recently I did a video on track comping, which essentially showed how that you could take several different vocal takes and compile them down to one good audio file that you could use in a mix. At the end of that, I asked if there were any questions that anyone had, or if there was any video topics that I could cover that have not been covered as of yet. And a lot of the questions that came back to me was, how do I get a vocal to set on top? So in this video, we're going to discuss vocal clarity within a mix. I would like to preface all this by saying that it would be needful for you to listen on a set of headphones or a set of mixing monitors in order to hear the subtleties and the nuances of the moves that are made in this video. It's going to greatly help to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing I do when I am going to mix a vocal within a mix is I always start with subtractive EQ. As you can see over here in the Pro channel, I have a high pass filter set to 111 Hz, meaning everything below 111 Hz is going to be attenuated or turned down. Generally speaking, this takes care of the low end rumble and a lot of the low end information that is not necessarily needed in a lead vocal part, and it gives room for the other lower end instruments to breathe and to set around that vocal. After this first initial move of subtractive EQ, and that is simply the high pass filter, I always move on next to saturation. As you can see, there's a console emulation within this Pro channel, which is going to give it just a little bit of saturation from that console emulation. However, the real saturation comes from the VX64 vocal strip, as you can see here. The way that the signal flow is it comes in through this side and it exits through this side. So coming in, it's got just a very small amount of saturation. You can turn that off or on here, and as you can see, 9% is the amount of tube saturation at the input stage. Next, it moves on into a de-esser, as seen here in the routing. Then it goes into my compand section, which is my expander / compression section. There's a very small amount of compression that's applied to these vocals so that it can just kind of tame some of the higher parts, bring up some of the lower parts, but it's very subtle in the sense that all of the breath and the emotion is still left within that particular vocal. From there, it will move on into the doubling section, which, as you can see now, is not enabled. Typically, I enable the doubling only on the chorus unless I'm going for a specific kind of effect, and I use that through automation so that I don't have to take several takes or have several tracks with a specific plug-in on it. So as you can see, it's off now, but if I was to move to the chorus within this mix, now it's enabled. So going back to the verse, it's disabled. After it goes to this section, it goes in through the delay. In this instance, I don't have a delay on the lead vocal, but I do have one on a secondary vocal that I use for effect. And so then next it's going to go through my tube equalizer, and as you can see, I'm adding a moderate amount of tube saturation on just the low end and the high end frequencies. Now you would say, well, if you have a high pass filter at 111, why would you boost low end at 90 Hz? Technically speaking, that low end information is still there. Although it's been EQ'd out or attenuated, a lot of it is still there. So what I'm attenuating is actually just the remnants of that bass frequency that's still active within the mix. And as you can see as well, it starts at 90, but it actually goes all the way up to 125. As for the high-end frequencies, starting this at 6.7 kilohertz, this is around the region within a male vocal where you can get a lot of the throaty and the guttural sounds, which, if done subtly, can actually add to helping not only that vocal to poke out of a mix, but to give it some grit, some character. Okay. After that, moving on in this signal chain, you can see that I've got another EQ, and it's predominantly subtractive EQ as well. 188 Hz, 388 Hz, 855, sort of the nasally region, and then there's a boost at almost 2000 kilohertz, another huge cut here at 8000, which is a sibilant area for my particular vocal, and then another high shelf boost at around 11,000 kilohertz here. So yet again, more subtractive EQ is done than additive, and it's a lot more pleasing to the ear if you just get rid of the unwanted noises rather than trying to boost the ones that you do like. Okay, so moving on, the last thing that I like to add in this chain as far as effects is this limiter, and I have it set to where basically it's going to be limiting that vocal to make it sort of like a bass track would set. Now with a bass, I always put a limiter on as the last thing in the chain, just to keep that bass always present and able to be heard. It's sort of the backbone of a mix in most instances. Likewise, on this vocal, I'm doing the exact same thing to where I'm not letting that vocal slide beneath a certain region. This will also add to the effect of the louder parts becoming more tamed, the lower parts becoming a little more tamed as well, bringing everything into a nice place in the middle, but with a little bit of compression that was added before, still allowing it to just have that breath and that airiness as well as the emotion. However, all of this is definitely needed, and it can definitely help. There's a myriad of ways to do all of these things. It doesn't necessarily have to be with these particular plugins either. The one thing that I would say though, sort of to wrap all of this up, is the easiest way to get a vocal to stick out of a mix or to get that vocal clarity is to actually create a space for that vocal itself. And I've done that here through the use of reverbs. I've got a reverb short room, a medium plate, and 2 long halls being panned right and left. And each one of these is done in such a way to where I will actually get a true stereo field from that. And then lastly, I've got a patch point that's going into my 5th up and 5th up, left and right. I'm using Little Altar Boy, but you could definitely use Melodyne for this. I've got these set to 5ths, and they're set just a little bit differently, so yet again I will have a true stereo field sound. But essentially all I'm doing is I'm sending this vocal into these plugins using a patch point, so I don't have to copy extra audio. I just simply send it to another place. I could have used a bus to do this as well, but it's actually easier to see it here on the track panel when I'm mixing. And essentially what this causes is a little bit of this thickening, and I'll show you what I mean here. Please prepare for a loud noise. I've bitten my tongue until it's bleeding. So in and of itself, it doesn't really sound the greatest. It actually sounds kind of like junk. But whenever you put it in with the lead vocals, it adds this thickening element to it. I've bitten my tongue until it's bleeding. Now there's also several different ways in which this is done. Warren Huart is one who has championed this idea, I believe, of vocal thickening. I know it's been done by many engineers all around the world, but he's the one that really kind of broke it out of the box, broke it down and showed it to people. Now in his particular way that he does it, he does ups and downs and different semitones on the rights and left. I particularly just like to do a 5th up, just because the higher frequencies to me are more audible and more heard, and it doesn't battle my low end. And then I can just kind of blend it up underneath those vocals. When actually put in together with the mix itself, you don't even really hear, but you can definitely hear when it's taken away. So here is with all of these mixing moves put together, setting on top of the mix. Yet again, loud noise. I've bitten my tongue until it's bleeding. I've bitten my tongue until it's bleeding. So if I was to take out the vocal thickening, let's listen to it again. I've bitten my tongue until it's bleeding. It's still clear. There's still some clarity that's there, but it's not quite as clear sounding until I add these back. Now listen again. I've bitten my tongue until it's bleeding. It adds just a little bit of an extra layer there that helps it to be more easily understood. So in closing, let's do a quick recap of everything that can be done, or that I've done at least, in order to get this vocal to pop out of this mix. First of all, there's EQ, subtractive, and then additive after the fact. Saturation is always helpful, not only on vocals, but on any instrument for that matter. There's some doubling that's done on the chorus. Reverb, in other words, creating its own space. Then there's a thickening method, which you can use any method you'd like, and limiting as well, I believe needs to be in that mix. If you don't want to use a limiter, you'd rather have Vocal Writer plugin on, that's fine too. Like I said, there's a million different ways to do this. This is just the way that I personally do it. And I'm going to show you a quick sound example of exactly what this sounds like in reference to the chorus so that you can hear the doubling as well. A lot of people don't think of doing this, but it's actually a really powerful move that's very subtle, but can definitely create the emotion that's needed for a particular chorus and helps to give it that extra large sound that you're looking for in the chorus. So I'm going to play this right before the end of verse 1 into the chorus, and we will fade out with that clip. Once again, guys, if this has been helpful, that's awesome. Give it a thumbs up, like it, share it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and click on that bell icon as well so that anytime that I upload a new video, you'll be the first to know. Until the next time, guys, you all have a blessed day. I'll talk to you later.
You thought that I would fall, but I'm standing in the